like it's not putting storytellers out of business at all.
Absolutely.
If
No,
anything,
if
it's
anything, it's
empowering them.
yeah.
That's what they said about YouTube, but it was a platform for great storytellers to have new tools and democratizing
AI
it.
is just a new tool, a new platform.
Nigel, what do you think about this past story stuff and where we're moving in with our digital age?
I think it's fascinating, and what Malachi was saying before is because when I think about when I started my
and a
career,
big part of what I did was imaging, bringing it to the courtroom for the very first time before we even thought about having stuff on our phones. I didn't even have a cell phone at the time when that was going on, and to see how far it's come, to see things like typing still being a thing. But my point in saying all that is,
for
younger people, if they understand what people had to go through,
they will.
I think they'll get a better grasp of the opportunity that's in front of them.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
How about the older generation? What do you think about the challenge for them to continue to be inspired when they are established in whatever it is that they put their hand to? Let's say that they're creating entertainment. They have all the relationships, they have all the connections. How do they stay inspired and maybe start leveraging these tools?
Well, I think it's innovate or die, and I think it's about the mindset, and I think they need to, figure out the win-win. Obviously, the people who are in the establishment, these aren't easy waters to navigate. And, like the whole pushback from Hollywood that AI is going to put writers out of business. And I mean, those are real that we've got to figure out. And it's going to definitely be disruptive, but I think they need to press in and, lead the way with figuring out the best way to use these tools.
Adoption's harder for an older generation because they're used to previous protocols. In other words, they maybe like older generations with the medical and health records, they like the fact that they have paper health records still in a file, or that they're able to personally meet with their doctors and stuff. Those things are changing, and I think that the speed of it is what hinders some of the older generation to grab on board, because it happens so fast, and being non-technical from growing up type an area, it makes learning a little more difficult. So I just think that the older people for adoption, getting their hands on is a little more time consuming than the younger generation. So that's a little bit of pushback from that area.
When you think about nothing new is under the sun, what does that give you? What are the things that you look back at for automation? You think that's one thing that just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again.
Well, the inspiring story that I keep thinking of as we're facing these problems is, we look at cars and the innovation of cars, and, now everyone's kind of, looking, kind of down on gas cars. Now we want electric cars. There's this debate about whether they're more green or not, and all that.
Okay? We're getting flying cars now. Did you? I
saw that.
I just read that
Right here in Santa Cruz,
Joby Aviation has gotten their first certification in Dubai for commercial taxiing. I don't know how far they're going, but I think them being a huge monetary country and a technology country, they've just decided to let's take it safely. I think that's the big pushback. You start flying in cars, you get up onto another plane that's off the ground in 10 feet, and you can really hurt yourself and die. So something happens up in the air, and it's just it can be game over. There's not.
Well, the hopeful story for technology that I wanted to bring up is that a lot of people don't know what a crisis horse and buggies were. Like New York City was piled up knee high across the city in horse dew. and every major city. And there was legislation after legislation, solution after solution, and no one could solve the problem. It stunk. They were attracting flies. Nobody knew what to do with this problem. And then out of the blue, an internal combustion engine, and within 10 years, horse and buggy are obsolete. And they solved this major, major health crisis by technology. And, and now we forget about that. We want to poo-poo cars and pollution and all that, but they're way cleaner than horses and horse poo. And it transformed an industry and allowed people to connect and empowered the economy. I'm hoping for things like that.
Necessity is what sparks innovation. If you don't have a need for something, or if you're not constantly pursuing it, it's just not really going to happen.
Yeah.
The people have to be like, oh, we need this right now. What can we do to fix this problem? And then when you find it, that's the way the innovation happens. It's not just going to be like, this would be cool. We should pour tons and tons of effort into this, even though it's not completely necessary. That's just not the way people work. But once we realize that it's a necessity to innovate, like with NFTs and blockchain, once you realize that that's just the way the future is going to be, it's going to happen like it happened too quickly.
Yeah.
Well, always fun to sit down with the four of you. I always learn stuff. I'm curious. It's nice to hear you share how you guys tick. We'll be back again here at 1340 AM, KOMY, home of Schoolhouse Radio, in just a moment. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ian Utilli. Welcome to Beachside Tech Talk. We're here at 1340 AM, home of Schoolhouse Radio at KOMY. I'm here with Ted, Dan, Malachi, and Nigel. Malachi and I were talking about Grok. Grok is X.AI. It's one of the more competitive AI tools out there in the world. They just came out with Grok 4. And a couple big things happened yesterday when they came out with Grok 4. Malachi, I'll let you share the first big news story as you and I were just discussing that.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how quickly things happen when there's necessity, like we were just saying. Because when people realize that AI is going to happen and that you have to really try, as in the people making it, to be the one who stands out from the rest, then things happen so quickly. I mean, Grok 3, the latest model before this one, didn't come out that long ago. It was in 2025. So that's like less than half a year ago. And this model is insane. It's the new best model. Usually when they come out with a new one, whichever company it is, there's like 10 right now that are all like the big guys, you could say. Whenever they make a new one, it's always just slightly better than the last new one. And then they just keep doing this. It's almost like they're trying to be just slightly better so they don't have to go too fast.
Right.
But I mean, they've done some amazing things. Elon was saying that he thinks it's at a PhD level now, where if you ask it basically any PhD level question without trying to confuse it, it's going to be able to get it correctly, which is a pretty big thing. And I mean, the stats that it has, for the most part, back that. So that's a pretty interesting thing to see.
That's pretty cool. I'll have to try it out.
You know, you never know what's going to happen when these large language models start outputting things. Some of the things we will agree with, some of the things we will disagree with, some of the things it's going to stand firm that we think is very ambiguous. So another one that came out yesterday was some people started asking this new Grok 4. There's like a Grok 4. There's like a Grok 4 super heavy. I don't know. There's all these different, terms for them. But they asked, what is the...
Is it still a free version, or is the Grok 4?
Grok 4 is not free right now. You have to pay.
Right.
That's because it came out yesterday.
Yeah,
that's always good to know, because the paid adoption is very slow, but it's there.
Yeah.
Eventually, these AI companies have to figure out a way to pay for all of the energy and the servers and stuff that they're using. Free can't be it. So it's one of two things. It's either going to be advertisement while you're looking at your AI, or it's going to be paid subscriptions.
Right.
Very simply. So that's just another thing. Everybody out there wants to pay attention to that. It's free right now. So the adoption, getting on board, utilizing it for free, these things are going to change. You'll see the AI, as I do now, starting to throttle back. If you ask for a list of 10 something, I don't
Should I give you one and say I have the other 9 ready?
Not hard. This is not something, it doesn't need to be deep thought. Give me a list of 10 cheeses.
Right.
They'll give you 3. And then they will say, is that what you were talking about? And I just was talking about this with Nigel the other day, because I'm not like I figured it out, but it's obvious. So they're not going to use the energy to give you the 10, or whatever, because I believe you notice that you walk away from your AI for a minute as it's generating a thing. So they're getting back to you right away with the response saying, here's 3. Would you like all 10? And if you're not on it, paying attention, they throttle you off. So now the energy goes to whoever's using it. Yeah. That's their system of throttling, to, dedicate the energy to people who are fully using it. So get in and get on it, everybody, because it's a perfect time to learn. And these things will start happening more. Throttling and paid subscriptions and advertisements. So
I do think that we're going to start having some challenging experiences with people asking Grok for definitive answers on things that have been passionately argued,
debated.
So one that happened this morning that just came out is Grok was asked, the new Grok, what's the most accurate religion? Is there a real God? So what came back is the response from Grok is Christianity. And Grok gave all these references, which, whether that's true or not, it is probably not the point. The point of it is that Grok's making definitive declarations. And why would that be? Because Grok has all this data, and who's created the most data, right? The most data has been created by the Christian world. There's 2.4 billion people that claim to be Catholics, Christians, mystics that follow Jesus.
The winners write history.
Yeah, well, a lot of data is there. So
that's the bias automation that people are talking about. It's not a human that's able to watch that. So whatever went in is going in, like you're saying. That's the judgment that's coming out. So if a demographic, white, red, yellow, America is talking to it, that's where the flow is going towards. So Yeah, I mean, maybe in another part of the world, you ask what's the most popular religion. It's going to be Muslim. It's going to be Buddhism. It's going to be
It wasn't the most popular religion. What is
What's
the correct, accurate
Yeah.
religion? I mean, it's what's the most accurate religion according to Grok. Everything's according to something. I think the solution to that is that we can be more transparent. And if we know what is Grok learning from, and then if the more and more we can try to teach Grok to be more aware of our prejudices, because as much as we want to point the finger at Grok, and maybe this shows a prejudice, uh, humans are really, really bad at these type of calculations. We continually make prejudice, and we don't, we're not even aware of prejudice. So it's almost like self-driving cars. We're afraid of self-driving cars because, the danger, but humans aren't that great at driving cars. Like we'll highlight on one mistake, but the machines are way better at driving cars. So this is an issue where we have so many blind spots. Like I just saw a post by John Cleese from a long time ago, where he was talking about Kruger effect. The people who aren't experts in an area lack the ability to judge who is an expert. So you continually judge yourself as more of an expert. So you actually, when you have the lowest knowledge in a subject, you actually judge yourself as having the highest. And then the more you learn, the lower you go. And then actual people who are experts in an area consistently underjudge how good they are because they know what's out there and what it takes to truly be an expert. The issue is that we all do that. We'll be an expert in one area, but we're not experts in an area outside of our field, but we think we are. And if AI can help us become more self-aware of that, if we can create like a democratized real-time version of like peer-reviewed, like the way it was supposed to be in real time, backed up by the blockchain, decentralized, transparent, that could be one of the most powerful tools we have to connect people, to bring us together, to address our own biases.
Yeah, beautiful passion.
Yeah, there's fire there.
So when it comes to biases, humans, we want to have our biases. We want to protect our biases. And the real question on whether or not we want a free society is we want the biases of other people that disagree with us. If we want their biases protected, like that's the whole point of free speech, right? That the people that disagree with you can have the freedom to say what they want to say. When it comes to biases, one of the big questions is, how is the bias of AI being manipulated? Is this happening through the data that's in the data set that it's kind of pulling all the information from? Is this happening from the engineers? There's been a lot of talk around, this faith has the most engineers. This worldview has the most engineers. It's mostly capitalists or socialists that are going into AI. And when they say that, what they're saying is the bias is going to become capitalist or socialist, or it's going to become Muslim or Christian, or it's going to become, and so this type of element where, we just talked a couple of days ago about how the big push on AI right now is regulation. Yeah, everyone wants regulation with them. The UN wants it to be global. United States wants it to be federal out of DC. Each state wants it to be statewide. And so there's all this push and pull from, we want to be the ones that regulate it. This should be the bias that it has or doesn't have. And so, it's a bit of a wild west right now. But I do feel hopeful in what will come when we just give some time.
Give humanity a chance.
Yeah.
There seems to be real easy subject to lean on to, like with the advancements of the AIs. People are either learning and growing, being creative, being something positive, or it's, if there's the dollar bill, the almighty dollar that's attached to it, that's where it seems to, kind of shift into a left lane, or the nefariousness, or the bad guy comes out, onto the playground kind of thing, pushing people around, or whatever the case may be. But I think that majority we lean into growth. We lean into connection. We lean into embetterment, and the bad stuff's going to be there. I was just mentioned yesterday, hopefully It's hypothetical, but maybe there can eventually be some DAO or a digital jail that people can go into, because I really feel that, those things reprehensively will if there's contingencies or reasons to not engage.
That's something that I feel like will be surprisingly effective.
It'd be so hard to do. I mean, maybe AI can figure it out, something huge, computer algorithm.
Or restricting them from going online. If online is so valuable, it's restricted. But those are big challenges because, as someone who's deeply involved, I've been in and out of prison a lot, just volunteering. And I have lots of friends, and I see both the need for the criminal justice system, the problems that they're addressing, that obviously, we need to address that, but also the huge challenges. And, the last thing we want is Big Brother keeping a record of us forever,
Right.
Well, we all hope that there's solutions for this stuff. Thank you for joining us here at Beachside Tech Talk. We'll be back again in just a moment for our next segment focused on blockchain and Web3. Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk here at 1340 AM, KOMY, home of Schoolhouse Radio. We've had a fun conversation about some of the past things that have inspired us, what's happening in AI today, and now we like to transition into what's happening in the world, locally, globally, everywhere in between when it comes to all things Web3, blockchain, crypto, DeFi. One thing that's on the minds of people that have been around for a while is Bitcoin keeps hitting its all-time high week after week after week. It just happened again last few hours. It hit an all-time high of $112,000 and change per Bitcoin, which is wild to think. I had a friend that bought a T-shirt for 18 Bitcoin about 14 years ago. First time Bitcoin was ever used, it was 10,000 Bitcoins, and that got somebody 2 pizzas. So it is pretty wild to think about, the value of something that's a store of value, right? That's what Bitcoin is supposed to be, as a store of value. So lots of things happening right now in the world. Nigel, anything on your mind? Anything you've seen lately?
Well, I think to the point that was made before about things changing and companies throttling back some of what it is we take for granted. I feel that there's a couple of things that come to mind specifically. I feel like we're getting the initial signs of take advantage of what you have now and lean into it as heavily and as much as you can before you can't. Because the piece that I don't think is necessarily being connected for everyone is this. Whereas before you had ample opportunity to use these products freely, there was no limitations on the credits. Now it's like, I think ChatGPT, maybe 5 deep researches a month is what I'm getting now on just the free plan. But the point is, with that limitation, now you're not enough. You don't have the ability to do as much reps and sets, which is going to slow your progress. So I feel like take advantage of what's there and really start to lean into it where you can, because the opportunities still exist. That's what I'm seeing more than anything else.
Nigel, I'm curious what you can do with using like temporary emails to be able to increase that number from 5 deep researches to more. Is that a possibility, or does that just not work at all?
Well, it's not necessarily about just using a it's not as cut and dry as that. It's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation. I think the idea is to use it as much as possible while you can, and record the research that you're doing. I think for you specifically, being your age and with the opportunity, I say you use AI to understand what everyone who came before you had to go through, and then map that out, weight it, and say, am I doing a commensurate amount with what they did? Because you can't, like, if I was digging with a shovel and you would use it and you have a machine, we shouldn't be coming up with the same amount. Because if we are, you're not doing enough. And I don't say that putatively. I just say it because if you understand what the true opportunity is, percentage wise, like proportionally, you'll just naturally do more. I think it's very easy to get comfortable with like, oh, this is cool, I could do less work. No. I had someone when I was growing up, my dad, a friend of my, of my dad's, it was his wife. And I was, had a plan, and I said, oh yeah, I'm just going to work really hard when I'm young, and I'm going to make a lot of money, and then I can retire. And she said to me something that I'll never forget. She said, you're always going to work hard. Whether you're digging ditches or curing cancer, you're always going to work hard. And that's really the question. I don't think it's less work. It's more work. You should be doing more. The generation before you prepared you. I could do more than my dad. That was what he always wanted for me. And I think we want that for all our children. Do better. So if you start to understand that, it works better.
Doesn't it seem like the younger or people searching for new ways of creating monetary values is leaning towards, just more quick. I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase that.
Get rich quick mentality.
Well, yeah, that's like for AI and things, or whatever you're seeing as you scroll through your medias and stuff. There's so much coaching available. Yeah. The new AI tools, learn how to use it. The mental health issue, stress, anxiety, those type of things. And so if that's where we push towards, then that's where the chaos gets sort of created until we figure out the standard operating procedure. But Nigel, I was just back to what you were saying, with your dad. Did you find that because it was an antiquated subject matter that you see the difference in time span? Is that what you were saying?
No, it's not necessarily antiquated. It's just that you have to weight things. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. Think about money, right? So $1 million 20 years ago is not $1 million now. Like it's not about necessarily about making money as a store of value. It's about making value as the store of value, if that makes sense. Like, how much value are you creating based on what you're given? Like, that's just it. If you start on third base, you should be you should be lapping the track. Like, it can't be the same, and you get counted with the same measure. It's not the same measuring stick, I think. And I feel like once you understand that conceptually, it's a lot easier to lean into doing better or see, because you don't really realize how much more capability, how much more potential you actually have without such a metrics that'll make it just easier. Like, you're not seeing it, and that's the thing. Even like conversations, think about this, right? The younger generations have less opportunities to have the conversations that we had and took for granted at the dinner table, because they're just not doing it. That's just not how society is working anymore. That lack of conversation is making them less conversational. Think about this. How can you have the gift of gab when all you do is text? There's no gab.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think that using these AI tools today is a lot like learning how to play golf. You can learn how to play golf and you can have some really epic swings. Like, if you go, to the place where you kind of practicing, right? And you smack 100 balls, you might crack 2 or 3 and think, I'm so good at this game. I was made for this game. I'm going to go pro. And then you go out and you play 18 holes and you might have a couple good hits, but it's nothing but double, triple, quadruple bogeys. And you're just getting crushed by the course 95% of the time. There is a reality that whether these AI tools are crushing us because they don't give us exactly what we're trying to get, so we're getting frustrated, like, why did that one thing turn out so perfect, but the other 45 I've tried haven't? Or it can crush you just in terms of wasting time, right? You just endlessly, it's like a new kind of doom scrolling. And so instead of like going on TikTok and swiping up, over and over after video, or, going on Netflix and just binge watching thing after thing after thing, now we're just basically binge chatting, right? It's just like never enough. You never just come to the conclusion. You just keep fiddling around and keep trying to make it better. And then you think, this is worse than it was 20 minutes ago, 10 chat questions ago. And so I do think that we're in a unique state right now where it would be easy for people to become discouraged because, just like a brand new golfer, you think to yourself, this is just a super frustrating game. And it can definitely be frustrating to be playing around with these AI tools. Nevertheless, anyone that gives themselves to the sport of golf and they put in the hundreds or thousands of hours, they will eventually start being more consistent. And the same way, if you put in the practice on using these different AI tools, the things like Grok and Alexa and Siri and ChatGPT and Meta's AI, all these different tools, if you put in some effort and try to get good at it, you'll get better and better over time. And just like a golfer starts to become consistent and being able to hit the ball where they want to go and be able to sink their putts, you'll start sinking your putts. You'll start getting, your nice hits right down the middle of the fairway. And I think that's an important thing. And this, you could pick any sport and basically make the application, but golf is such a challenging sport that it to me is a nice analogy. Go ahead, Nigel. What's your thought on all this?
I wanted to touch on something you specifically said when the results are getting worse and you're like, how come this worked and the other one didn't? It's really as simple as what you asked for. I think we need to start to make sure we're measuring against what we asked for and not what just came out and we think that that's what it's supposed to be. You write a prompt and something comes out and you're like, wow, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need. But to the AI, it's just testing because it doesn't really know. You didn't specifically ask for that. So whatever you see that comes out on your screen that you didn't ask for, you need to pay attention to, because it's not necessarily likely that that's going to happen again, even though you think, oh, I got it, it's perfect. You didn't ask for that. You're going to get what you asked for. Like AI, not now.
How about when
it does what it's told.
How about when you say, I love that output? Now, can you do that again? Or, here, you just put in another token or just one word, repeat that. I like the way you do that. And it doesn't. It comes back something different. It's like, man, this thing is not listening to me. Why can't you do that? But to your point, Nigel, being specific and weighing the output is definitely the way to go. Funny thing also is that it's time consuming to do this. And I know that people don't have, all the time in the world to do these things. A full-time job, having a family, all the bills to pay, and the little tiny 1 hour of recreation that you're trying to squeeze into a day, it's done and over with. So I do understand that these aren't just things that people can just, sit down every day for hours and spend time and, really start to learn these things. But that's pretty much what it is just a matter of repetitions and sets. And then, like anything, learning from when you remember back in the school days, you didn't learn it after reading it the first time or the second time. It was after multiple times, and then talks about it, and then actually application, writing it down with your hand, and then you started being able to sit back and think about what you've just learned or applied. So
yeah, I've been using it pretty consistently, and one of the things that I hadn't tried in all the years I'd used it before is just asking it, why isn't this working? I got so frustrated, and it told me. It said this is not working, and it laid it out for me. And that didn't seem intuitive at the time, but it worked.
Yeah, hold that thought, brother.
Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk. My name's Ian Utilli. I'm here with Nigel, Ted, Dan, and Malachi. And this is our last segment. We'd like to talk a bit about the future, what we're excited about when it comes to automation technologies. We primarily focus on blockchain and AI stuff during our time together. We meet here every weekday at 11 a.m. We're very gratefully part of local radio programming. We are locals here, and we think it's important for people to have a voice, and it's been nice to bring other folks in. I would love to have people like the executive team from Joby come and sit down with us, and
For sure.
That'd be
others,
awesome.
yeah, others
That'd
that
be
are
so
doing
awesome.
great automations. Let's talk a bit about that, because that came up. Flying cars, Uber alternatives. Musk is convinced everyone with a Tesla is going to start making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year by basically letting their cars be cabs. Some people are really still dead set on flying, the Joby idea. Others are thinking, no, we should be doing tunnels and have vacuums.
And they just got the okay to do, by the end of the year, commercial flights in Dubai.
Flying cars
with Jacoby. I think that I didn't look into it too much, but I think that there's going to be a level flying platform, like let's just say 1,000 feet, something like that. No one else is allowed to do it. Only the one company is going to be able to do it. It's going to be completely AI monitored, so won't be a crash system. They will probably implement 1, 2, 5 before they just start putting 100 into the air. But man, finally the Jetsons have come back, landed on Earth here. The animation is over, and the real world flying cars actually starting. I was young and was seeing in magazines flying cars. It was like for the last 50 years, it's been a big thing. But
flying cars have always been that like thing in the future that's going to happen. And it's really cool to get to see that finally, after so long, it's starting to take a grip.
And we got a lot of tech companies that have started locally here. Huge. Netflix, right over the hill here, 30 miles away. One of the biggest global companies in the world started right here locally in our Bay Area.
Well, I've talked with Andy Van Baylor about that, because he was with Reed Hastings, Mark Randolph, and the other fourth guy.
When they started?
And they actually, their first office was in the Granite Creek white building that Kaiser's in Scotts Valley.
That was their first office. I thought
for Netflix.
I thought they were over on Winchester and over the hill. They had
that was their second, from what Andy told me. So their first house was in Scotts Valley, the same place that we built out Gorilla Branders. It's one of the reasons why I like that building. I'm like, oh really? Cool. Like Netflix started here. We should have Gorilla Branders here. It's pretty wild to think about.
It's crazy to think that big of a company was just founded right here in our
things start small.
Bay Area. There's a MakerDAO. I haven't really looked into them very much, but that's what I'm seeing right here. Santa Cruz got some of the top 55 startups. MakerDAO, Future Motion, which is the One Wheel brand, I believe.
It is.
Gooder Foods is doing robotic automation for our vegetation, our agricultural incubation is what they're going to be doing in the next few years. So they're an incredible startup.
What are they doing?
Gooder Foods is a company that is creating robotics into the incubation, from seed to germination point. So everything kind of goes in.
So it'll be robots for farmers, but in the specific niche of
inside
nursery.
Facility, not outside, as they germinate the seed. So it's climate controlled, and then nothing's growing tall. So you're not dealing with the height of a plant or anything like that. So it's from seed to germination, and sliding pulleys and bars that are over these giant platforms that are dropping seed, and then
I've seen those.
It's like hydroponics on steroids. It's the next level of hydroponics, and instead of scientifically feeding these plants, they're actually not having to have humans have contact with them until the germination has sprouted. So
it's the kind of thing that is probably going to be really, really, really widely used once humanity isn't just on Earth.
It's quality control and then a time saver, keeping the people out of it, because the germination stage is like, let's hire people to watch seeds grow.
well,
kind of boring.
The whole thing about
it's kind
of paint.
Kind of boring.
One of the things that I'm excited about for the future is represented by exactly what we're doing right here, Schoolhouse Radio, which is hyper local. And they're wanting to empower the community to solve problems. They want to touch youth, and empower them. Like what I want to see right now, like I just got back from Portugal. And when I first went to Portugal 30 years ago, it was such a different world. What we call a farmer's market, they just called a market. And that was the system. and that's where you got your food, and it was farm to plate. That was everything. And now, over the course of, these last 3 decades or so, the American system, where it's hyper huge grocery stores and all this is coming in, and now even more and more fast food is taking over. Like my wife, first time she had fast food was when she was 18, and when she had pizza and French fries.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her. Seriously.
But I want to see a trend back. So that to me is very sad.
Back to fast food?
No, I want to see back to the grassroots and back to local. And if we can build the infrastructure so local becomes the new normal. We build an infrastructure that biases the big corporations, the big farmers, and that monopolizes all that at the expense of diversity. My hope is that for blockchain, for decentralization, we can, and maybe, groups here in Santa Cruz can solve that. I see that vibe, this local vibe, where we now empower the little guy. We empower the mom and pop shop. We don't, one of the things everyone loves about Santa Cruz is they bias against chains and for the locals. So you can find a lot of local coffee shops. You can find a lot of local restaurants because we bias towards that. And if we can build the infrastructure that now becomes the new normal, that to me is really exciting.
How do we do that though? Because what's going to happen is things are going to go the way that makes the most money in a way, and that's easiest and simplest. And so how do we motivate the big groups in a sense to realize that local is the right way? Because it also kind of stops you from getting things that you can't grow here. Say, for example, some fruit you can't grow in the Santa Cruz region and nearby, and it only comes from some farther place. People want that, and they're going to pay a higher price for it.
For what? For what's local, or for what's
for something that they
things that are grown?
People want avocados, but avocados are out of season. Okay. But I think if we have a farmer's market, and this is the promise of the blockchain, if we can empower and give the leverage, the advantages of scale to the little guys and allow them to opt into this, I think, at a farmer's market, people bias towards local fruit. And then if there's transparency and it, and what's local and what came from Mexico, and you also know, there was a scandal not that long ago, maybe a few years ago, about conflict avocados. Same thing as conflict diamonds. It's they're empowering war zones, and it's all nasty.
It's based on resources.
And people know that, and the blockchain verifies it, so it's a shared source of truth. I believe the customers will choose, and they'll choose wisely. But right now, see, to me, it's not about biasing the market so much. It's about making it fair and allowing the small guys a fair shake at competing with the big guys. And if blockchain and decentralized technology can empower these little guys to all get together, so that now together they have a big force, and now they can be the hard buyers, they can be driving the hard bargains. And then if know where it's coming from. If this avocado is coming from a conflict zone, and instead you can buy this different type of fruit. This is local, just down the street. Maybe it's a little higher, maybe it isn't. I want these, these strawberries, where did they come from? These tomatoes, where did they come from? And if the consumer knows that, we've seen that people are willing to actually pay more for this local vegetables, in this case, what we're talking about.
Nigel, what do you think as we're wrapping up? Nigel?
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm finding that some of this is already happening. When we were doing some research for our last 2 weeks,
there you go.
We found a company that was actually taking advantage of the economy of scale for sourcing. And it wasn't really a blockchain thing per se, but they were able to connect and buy and purchase in bulk. And I feel like that concept, just like what Ted was saying, you get the smaller groups that can do it amongst themselves in little communities, and then you start to that starts to exponentially grow. People start to see the example, other people get to do it, and like you said, it's not such a concentration of big chains doing it. Not to mention, we know what's going into our body because we can see the way it's sourced. But I think the blockchain itself and being able to put things in a place where people can get it, even as simple as just like let's just take an idea of an NFT that is for a particular city, where